Today, the Department of Homeland Security confirmed the death of a 7-year-old Guatemalan girl who last week was apprehended after crossing the U.S. border illegally with her father. Amna Nawaz is here to walk us through what happened and what this tragic story can tell us about the government's border control policies. Amna, what can you tell us about what happened to this poor girl?
We do have some details. DHS officials earlier today held a call. They tried to answer some reporters' questions then. We know she was 7 years old. We know she was traveling from Guatemala with her father. She made that 3,000-mile-plus journey with about 163 other people, and they were apprehended on the night of December the 6th. So this is last week, 9:15 p.m. at a place called Antelope Wells, New Mexico, by Border Patrol agents. Now, here's the crucial part of the timeline I want to zero in on. Let's take a look at this. We're now talking about the next morning, right? December the 7th at 4:30 a.m. That's the first time that a bus is available to transport this little girl named Jacqueline Kahl, by the way, with her father. At 5 a.m., just before the bus leaves, the father tells agents she is sick and she is vomiting. The bus continues to move to what is the closest Border Patrol station. It's an hour and a half away. At 6:30, it arrives there, and she receives medical care for the first time since arriving in the U.S. at 7:45, and she's no longer breathing, by the way, by the time she gets to the Border Patrol station. 7:45, an air ambulance is called in to transport her to the closest trauma unit. That is over in El Paso. We're told when she arrived there, Jacqueline was dehydrated. She had swelling around her brain. She was reliant on a ventilator by that point. The next morning, December the 8th, this 7-year-old girl dies. Now, one of the big questions is, why did it take so long to get her medical attention? Here's where a map is incredibly useful to know where we're talking about. That base, Antelope Wells in New Mexico, it's in an incredibly remote part of the country. There is water on site, we're told by DHS. We don't know if Jacqueline had any. There is no medical staff there. And from that base, they have to drive 95 miles to that closest Border Patrol station you see up in Lordsburg. That's 95 miles of nothing. There's no facilities, no towns, no medical support along the way. DHS officials basically say, look, everyone got initially screened. She wasn't sick at the time. Her father didn't flag that she was unwell. They say when they got on the bus, and there was just one bus available to shuttle people back and forth, by the way, they did all they could with the resources that they had.
On this issue of resources,
Yeah.
I mean, it does seem like a relatively small response, given that DHS knows that these people are coming in places like this.
Yeah.
Is DHS saying we need more because we know these people are arriving?
Not really. I mean, look, in terms of resources, there were 4 border agents there, the one bus we mentioned. That's not unusual overnight like that. We know that they regularly handle groups this size. They say they get around 100 to 300 people at a time. And we know the numbers of children they're encountering, those are going up. Those have been going up. Take a look at this other graphic we can show you now. This is what we call family unit apprehensions. These are adults arriving with children. That's been going up steadily over the last 4 months. The most recent numbers last month, 52,000. That's been going up, by the way, since 2012. And basically, groups who track this say when the threats change down in Central America, so did the demographics of the group arriving here. The difference is that we, as a government, we as a country, haven't been doing anything to change how we're receiving them and caring for them, even though we know that they're coming. If you want to understand, though, how the administration is viewing this, take a listen to how Deputy White House Press Secretary Hogan Gidley responded earlier today when he was asked about Jacqueline's death.
Southern border. It's a horrific situation. There's no two ways about it, and it's a sad time, but it's also senseless. It's a needless death, and it's 100% preventable. Does the administration take responsibility for a parent taking a child on a trek through Mexico to get to this country? No.
So, William, they made clear, right? The responsibility is not with them for failing to provide adequate care. It's with the parents for bringing them to the border in the first place.
Separate from this one particular tragedy, we know that there are lots of concerns about all the other young people who are being kept in U.S. custody right now.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, you've been doing so much reporting on this, what is the status of those other people?
Yeah, we should mention there's now an investigation into this young girl's death led by the Inspector General. We also should mention we have now more migrant children in U.S. government care than ever before in history. It's about 15,000. And we also know that they're staying in our care longer. And that's because this administration administration has put into place rules that prevent them and slow their release to family members who've usually been coming forward pretty quickly to get them. Children now stay in our care and custody for about 60 days. And it's in a system that's not designed to keep children long term. The administration requires fingerprints and background checks for people who are stepping forward, and then they arrest a lot of those people on the basis of their immigration status.
The people who come forward to say, I would like to sponsor this child, they're getting arrested when they volunteer to do this.
That's right, on the basis of their immigration status, even if they have no other criminal history. We know that that's happening again and again, and DHS said that they would do this again and again. I think the thing to focus in on here is now we know that more children will be arriving, and we're not prepared to handle them. And I'll share with you just one story I heard from an advocate who was down on the border interviewing migrant children. She talked to a young girl from Guatemala, and she asked her, why did you make this journey? You know how dangerous it is. You know that children don't do well on this. The little girl said, look, back home, they were going to kill me either way. And I wasn't going to let them decide how I died. If I died, I was going to die trying to live. That little girl, William, was 9 years old, and she said that if she had to make the journey again, she would.
Amna, thank you very much.
Of course.